Man is defined as a human being and woman as a female. Simone de Beauvoir, 1908 1986. Let's start reviewing some of the context in which Simone de Beauvoir started her thinking. In context, branch, ethics, approach, feminism. Before, C. 350 BC, Aristotle says the female is a female by virtue of a certain lack of qualities. 1792, Mary Wollstonecraft publishes a Vindication of the Rights of Woman, illustrating the equality of the sexes. 1920s, Martin Heidegger sets out a philosophy of existence, prefiguring existentialism. 1940s, Jean-Paul Sartre says existence precedes essence. After 1970s, Lucy Irigaray explores the philosophical implications of sexual difference. From 1980, Julia Kristeva breaks down the notions of male and female as characterized by de Beauvoir. French philosopher Simone de Beauvoir writes in her book The Second Sex that throughout history, the standard measure of what we take to be human, both in philosophy and in society at large, has been a peculiarly male view. Some philosophers, such as Aristotle, have been explicit in equating full humanity with maleness. Others have not said as much, but have nevertheless taken maleness as the standard against which humanity is to be judged. It is for this reason that the Beauvoir says that the self or I of philosophical knowledge is by default male, and his binary pair, the female, is therefore something else, which she calls the other. The self is active and knowing, whereas the other is all that the self rejects: passivity, voicelessness, and powerlessness. The Beauvoir is also concerned with the way that women are judged to be equal only insofar as they are like men. Even those who have written on behalf of the equality of women, she says, have done so by arguing that equality means that women can be and do the same as men. She claims that this idea is mistaken because it ignores the fact that women and men are different. De Beauvoir's philosophical background was in phenomenology, the study of how things appear to our experience. This view maintains that each of us constructs the world from within the frame of our own consciousness. We constitute things and meanings from the stream of our experiences. Consequently, de Beauvoir maintains that the relationship that we have to our own bodies, to others, and to the world, as well as to philosophy itself, is strongly influenced by whether we are male or female. Hi, PBX. Thank you so much for being back there. Here's a quote from Beauvoir: representation of the world is the work of men. They describe it from their own point of view. Simone de Beauvoir. Here it says, most of those who have written about human nature have been men. Men have taken maleness as the standard against which they judge human nature. Men have defined women by how they differ from this standard. Man is defined as a human being and woman as a male, as a female. Existential feminism. Simone de Beauvoir was also an existentialist, believing that we are born without purpose and must carve out an authentic existence for ourselves. choosing what to become. She asks us to separate the biological entity into which we are born, our bodies, from the social constructs imposed on them, such as femininity. Since my construct is open to change and interpretation, this means that there are many ways of being a woman. There is room for existential choice. In the introduction to the second sex, de Beauvoir notes society's awareness of this fluidity. We are exhorted to be women, remain women, become women. It would appear then that every female human being is not necessarily a woman. She later states the position explicitly. One is not born but becomes a woman. The Beauvoir says that women must free themselves both from the idea that they must be like men and from the passivity that society has induced in them. Living a truly authentic existence carries more risk than accepting a role handed down by society. But it is the only path to equality and freedom. The many myths of woman as mother, wife, virgin, symbol of nature, and so on trapped women, claimed the Beauvoir, into impossible ideas while denying their individual selves and situations. A little information of Simone de Beauvoir, the existentialist philosopher Simone de Beauvoir, was born in Paris 1908. She studied philosophy at the Sorbonne University, and it was here that she met Jean-Paul Sartre, with whom she began a lifelong relationship. Both a philosopher and an award-winning novelist, she often explored philosophical themes within fictional works such as She Came to Stay and The Mandarins. Her most famous work, The Second Sex, brought an existentialist approach to feminist ideas. Despite initially being vilified by the political right and left and being placed on the Vatican's index of forbidden books, it became one of the most important feminist works of the 20th century. De Beauvoir was a prolific writer, producing travel books, memoirs, and full-volume autobiography, and political essays over the course of her life. She died at the age of 78 and was buried in Montparnasse Cemetery. Key works: Pyrrhus and Cineas. 1947, The Ethics of Ambiguity. 1949, The Second Sex. 1954, The Mandarins. Okay, that was it for Simone de Beauvoir. Now let's turn the page into history. And let's do this real quick because I know you're in a hurry, so I need to be careful and wise with how I treat time because time is essential. Time is of the essence, okay, for you guys. Latin American post independence 1830 1910. Independence did not bring peace to Latin America. The new nations faced formidable challenges. Formidable. Let me clarify this. Yeah, war had wrought devastation across the region, destroying farms, factories, mines, and infrastructure. The colonial rulers had raided public funds before they fled, leaving little money available for reconstruction. National boundaries based on colonial administrative divisions were not clear cut. Many battles were fought throughout Latin America during the 19th century in defense of territory. Wars. In the War of the Triple Alliance, 1865-1870, Argentina, Brazil, and Uruguay fought Paraguay. As a result, Paraguay lost at least a fifth of its population, and Argentina and Brazil gained large chunks of Paraguayan territory. Chile defeated Bolivia and Peru in the War of the Pacific, 1879-1883. over control of the mineral-rich Atacama Desert. Bolivia's loss of this territory left it a landlocked country. A detail from a painting by Candido Lopez of the Battle of Tuyuti on 24th May 1866, at which the Paraguayan forces were routed. There were also frequent interventions in the region by foreign powers. In pursuit of its goal of a coast to coast nation, the United States attacked Mexico in 1846. Mexico lost and was forced to cede California, Nevada, Utah, most of Arizona, and New Mexico, and parts of Colorado and Wyoming. Spain suppressed Cuban independence in two wars, 1868, 1878, and 1895, 1898. The US became drawn into the conflict, which led to the Spanish American War, 1898, and Spain's surrender of Cuba and Puerto Rico to the US. In 1901, Cuba became independent. On the proviso, on the proviso on the proviso that the US could intervene in its internal affairs. Political struggles. There were also power struggles within each country between conservatives and liberals. Conservatives wished to retain many aspects of colonial life, including a politically powerful Catholic Church, and many favored constitutional monarchy. Liberals, influenced by Enlightenment ideas, supported the establishment of republics with representative governments, more equal treatment of non European and mixed race communities, private property, public education, and a weaker church. In the 1850s and 1860s, liberal governments came to power through most of Latin America. In Mexico, liberal reforms led to a civil war with the conservatives, 1858-1860, which the liberals won. Mexican conservatives then persuaded France to invade Mexico. In 1864, the French installed an Austro-Hungarian Archduke, Maximilian von Habsburg, as Mexico's emperor. He ruled until 1867, when the liberals regained power. In some countries, local leaders called caudillos fought for power against liberal leaders. The caudillos were backed by rural militias who were unwilling to see their countries ruled by urban elites. In Argentina, a caudillo called Juan Manuel de Rosas ruled 1829-1852, used a combination of bribes and brutality to unite other Argentine caudillos under his authority. Social changes. Liberal policies that promoted equality often left American Indians worse off than they had been under colonial rule, when they had at least enjoyed protection against Spanish encroachment on their lands. Liberal governments, especially in Mexico, forcibly redistributed these collectively owned lands, turning the Amerindians into smallholders or wage earners. Slavery was abolished in Central America in 1824. in Chile in 1825, and in the British West Indies in 1834. The other Latin American republics abolished slavery during the 1850s and 60s. Many former slaves, although officially free, had little choice but to continue working for their former masters on extremely low wages. Slavery clung on in Brazil, where powerful plantation owners dominated the weak government of Emperor Pedro II, reigned 1840-1889. In 1888, Pedro finally abolished slavery, freeing around 750,000 slaves. The following year, the army, supported by the plantation owners, forced Pedro from power, and Brazil became a republic. Economic development. Impoverished by war and plundered by former colonial rulers. Hi, Joshua, I am. The newly independent nations of Latin America lacked the resources to build self sufficient economies. Consequently, in the post independence period, their economies were based on the export of raw materials and import of manufactured goods. Attempts at homegrown manufacturing industries in Mexico, Colombia, and Brazil in the 1830s and 40s all failed owing to competition from European and American imports. The Industrial Revolution did, however, benefit Latin America by expanding global demand for its raw materials and reducing the price of important goods. From the 1860s, the Latin American economies grew rapidly and wealth flooded into the region. Foreign investors, the US, especially from the US, put their capital into fruit companies, mines, and rail and harbor construction. The population of Latin American countries more than doubled between 1820 and 1880 as immigrants arrived from Europe, a million coming to Brazil in 1898 alone, and a sizable middle class of business people, professionals, and bureaucrats emerged. By 1914, the region was producing 18% of the world's cereals, 38% of its sugar, and 62% of its coffee, cocoa, and tea. And tea. Cocoa and tea. Timeline 1836. Texas secedes from Mexico after the Battle of San Jacinto. 1836, 1839. Bolivia and Peru form a brief union. 1846, 1848. Mexican American War. 1865, 1870. War of the Triple Alliance. 1879, 1883. War of the Pacific. 1889. The Republic of the United States of Brazil is founded. 1903, Panama wins its independence from Colombia. 1904, 1914, U.S. engineers built the Panama Canal. Well, that was it for today, guys. Join me later in my other YouTube channel because I will giving you chapter 5 and 6 of your novel Jane Eyre. So see you then. Thank you so much. Goodbye. See you tomorrow.